Hello, in this video we're going to look at an application of limits at infinity. So we have the cost function here, c of x equals 4x plus 200, and this is giving us the cost in dollars for producing and selling x items. Don't really know what the item is, it really doesn't matter in this case, but if we wanted to find the average cost, the notation that we typically use for average is we're going to take, in this case, our c of x, and we're going to put a bar on top. That is a fairly common notation for average, so if you're asked to find c bar, that means the average cost. Well, in general, when we want to find the average of something, we add up all of them. So our total cost of x items is going to be that c function, and then we divide by how many there are. In this case, x items. So our average cost here, what we're getting is, this is the average cost of each item. So if you only produce 10 items, what's your average cost compared to if you produce 1,000 items? Your cost would be spread out a little different because you have some of your cost that is what we call fixed cost, and it's not dependent on the number of items that you're producing. It's stuff like the mortgage on the building, your production area, your warehouse, or the salary of some of your top employees. Something like that doesn't necessarily depend on how much you're producing. You still have those costs. And then you've got stuff like materials, maintenance on the manufacturing machine, stuff like that, that would depend on how many items you were producing. So our average cost is what happens to that if we kind of spread out those fixed costs over all of the items. So our average cost, we're just going to take our cost function, in this case 4x plus 200, and divide it by x. Now some people will say you need to simplify that. I'm perfectly fine for my students that are watching this to leave it in that form, but if you do want to simplify it, you can simplify that and write that as 4x over x, so it just simplifies to 4, and then you get 200 over x. The second one actually makes it a little bit easier to do part B, but it really doesn't matter. We can approach it either way. So part B is asking us to find the limit as x approaches infinity of that c bar. And so I'm going to go ahead and show you the first form, and then I will I'll point out how it simplifies to the second form is a little bit easier. All right, so analytically, if you have something, in this case, our top would be going to infinity and our bottom would be going to infinity because we have x on the top and x on the bottom. So what we're going to do is we are going to divide everything by the biggest power of x on the bottom. In this case, that's just x. And when we simplify that, that simplifies to 4 plus 200 over x over 1, which is what we would get if we just started with that point. So saves you a little bit if you do that simplification in the first step, or you can do it a second. Really depends on where you're headed. All right, so as x goes to infinity, we still just get 4 for that first term, but as x gets bigger and bigger and bigger, 200 divided by x is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. If you think of that, if x is 1,000, 200 over 1,000, it's going to be less than 1, and the bigger that x, the smaller that's going to get. In fact, the closer it's going to get to 0, and so we just get 4 as our limit as x approaches infinity for our average cost. Now, what is that telling us? Part B is asking us that exact question. If the limit as x approaches infinity, well, let's see what's happening. X is our number of items, and it's going to infinity. So if x is going to infinity, that means the number of items we're producing is going to infinity. So as the production level, the number of items we're producing gets bigger, our function here is our average cost function. So the average cost is getting closer to $4. In our average cost function, here we have C is in dollars and X is in items. So our average cost is in dollars per item. And so the units here would be in dollars per item. So that means as our production level gets bigger, our average cost is getting closer to $4 per item. So that can help us give us some indication as to what we should charge for that depending on what kind of profit margin we want. All right, I'll see you guys next time.